Hey, hey, hey. All right. Welcome back to Rock Doc's Reading Room. I hope you enjoyed the beginning of the book, Rock Doc, last week. And now I will continue reading the book and maybe a little extra commentary, and we'll see where we go from there. All right. So where did we leave off last week? Okay, so I'm director of anesthesia at a plastic and reconstructive surgeon's office in Manhattan, and I just find out that tomorrow Michael Jackson's going to be my patient, and he calls me up to talk about the surgery. We talk about this and that. I think I left off, we had spoken about using music in the operating room. And all right, let's see where we go from there. So again, Rock Doc by me, Neil Ratner. All right. So, okay, next, I went through the usual checklist of health problems, allergies, and previous surgeries. He asked if I would call the anesthesiologist at Dr. Hoffland's office. Michael was referred to Somers through his cosmetic surgeon in Beverly Hills, Dr. Stephen Hoffland. Now, Somers and Hoffland were buddies, and when one of Hoffland's patients was in New York and needed to be seen, he always sent them to Somers. We spoke a few minutes more. I reminded him, nothing to eat or drink after midnight. All right. Now, I called Hoffland's office and spoke to the anesthesiologist. Michael had been there many times over the years. He had no previous problems with anesthesia, and yes, they had been using Propofol. All right, so let me remind you now, Propofol was this new drug in anesthesiology that we were using instead of sodium pentothal to put people to sleep. And anybody who had experienced Propofol wanted that experience, not the experience of sodium pentothal, which made you nauseous and difficult to wake up from, and Propofol was a much better experience. And so Michael knew about Propofol from having been to Hoffland's office, and and of course I was using Propofol because it had become the new gold standard in anesthesia. All right, but of course, if you know the end of Michael's story, it ends with a bad Propofol experience, which I had nothing to do with, and as we get into the book later, we can talk more about that. Okay, at any rate, I called Hoffland's office and spoke to the anesthesiologist. Michael had been there many times over the years. He had no previous problems with anesthesia, and yes, they had been using Propofol. All right. I would be lying if I said I wasn't pumped. My emotions were a mixture of fear and excitement. The fear was more or less the same reaction I had before every surgery. The Hippocratic Oath says, do no harm. That was always my biggest concern. I felt that a little stage fright was a healthy response that kept me on my toes. The excitement came from being involved in a famous person's life. We all crave a little of that magic, and Michael Jackson was arguably the most famous entertainer in the world at that time. Of course, I had seen all kinds of stories about Michael, but I had learned long ago not to believe everything you see or read. It was much better to make your own determinations based, if possible, on personal experience. I knew Somers would be watching me closely. As good as he was as a surgeon, if I screwed up, he would get the blame. Patients quickly forgot who the anesthesiologist was, but they always remembered their surgeon. All right, the next day I got to the office early. I'll tell you a little joke about that. So as the anesthesiologist, on the day of surgery, the day before surgery, I was a very important person to the patient. But the joke is this, weeks later, when they got my bill, it was like, well, who the hell was he? I don't remember him. I didn't see him. Of course, the anesthetic drugs produced retrograde amnesia, so many people didn't remember, but that was the big joke in our specialty. Okay. The next day, I got to the office early. The street entrance in the middle of a block between Park and Madison Avenues opened to a plush waiting room with 2 couches, overstuffed comfortable chairs, and a table spread with the latest fashion magazines. My domain was the back half of the office, with its small but adequate operating room and unusually large 3-bed recovery room. Most offices barely had the space for a 1-bed recovery area. With 3 beds, we could do 3 consecutive cases without worrying about finding a bed for the patient coming out of surgery. Somer's private line rang as a black SUV pulled up in front of the building. A tall, light-skinned Creole with an obvious attitude led Michael in. His name was Wayne Nagin, and he exuded a level of confidence I hadn't seen before in security people. Seeing Michael Jackson close up for the first time was intense. Taller than I thought. He was wearing his signature outfit: black fedora, aviator sunglasses, red flannel shirt, black pants, white socks, and black loafers. We shook hands. His firm handshake surprised me. Michael followed me into the recovery room. I closed the curtain around the bed to give him some privacy while he changed into the surgical gown. He left the fedora on the nightstand and handed me his glasses. I put them in the pocket of my scrubs. Somers arrived and came into the recovery room to say hello. After their brief exchange, I wheeled Michael into the operating room. I carefully searched the back of Michael's hand for a place to put the IV. Oh, shit, really bad veins, I thought. I tried not to show my concern, but it was too late. Michael had been watching me the whole time, and I could hear him chuckling in his high-pitched way. What's so funny? They always have trouble, he remarked casually. Assuming you don't knock out any teeth, damage a vocal cord, scratch a cornea, or do something else calamitous, the worst thing you could do as an anesthesiologist is not get the IV in quickly and efficiently. No matter how good the anesthesia experience, sending a patient home with a big black and blue hand has consequences. When they see the marks from the multiple IV stabs, they remember the pain and anxiety that went with it. While I prepared to insert the IV, the nurse attached Michael to an EKG monitor, a blood pressure machine, and a pulse oximeter. Somers and his surgical assistant scrubbed their hands at the sink just outside the OR. I found the vein. It wasn't very big, but it was adequate. 1 stab and it was in. "You're good," Michael said. I could see by his face he meant it. Now I was the one smiling. I told Michael, "Think good thoughts." I placed the headphones over his ears and cranked up the classical piece he'd brought, and I put him to sleep. The procedure was fast and uncomplicated and took little more than an hour. Michael woke up quickly and didn't say much. He rested in the recovery room for about an hour. After changing back into his clothes, he put on the fedora and I handed him back his sunglasses. Michael gave me a hug and a smile. Wayne Nagin led the way out of the office into the waiting SUV. Finally, I let out a big sigh of relief. I think I'd been holding my breath the whole time. Every few months, I got a call about another small procedure. All were facial surgeries, usually nothing more than a simple revision of something that had been done before. Within a few months, Michael and I became friends, which was funny because Somers had insisted, "You'll never be friends with Michael Jackson." "You'll never" was something I had heard many times before in regard to every goal I told others I was going to achieve. As our friendship developed, and I'll talk more about that later, because I think it's really important and it's one of the messages in the book. Don't be discouraged by others. You got to believe in yourself because only you could make something happen. The others who may discourage you, they're not going to have anything to do with it. It's up to you. And if you believe enough in yourself, you could pretty much make anything happen. Okay, so as our friendship developed, Michael started calling me Rat. Of course, my last name is Ratner. He loved nicknames, never calling people by their first names. It was either a last name or it was a nickname that he would make up for you. I didn't love the nickname. It had too many negative connotations. But Michael got a big charge out of using it, so the name stuck. All right, that's it. Chapter 1. So what's going to happen with me and Michael? Unfortunately, or fortunately, you're going to have to wait a while because now I'm going to go back to my music business stuff and how that all happened, because as most of you know, I had two dreams, and one was to be a rock star and one was to be a doctor. So now we'll go back and talk about the rock star stuff. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. That's number 2. Next week will be number 3. And as I said in my video on Facebook today, if I get good response, maybe I'll do it more than once a week. All right. Have a great week, and visit me on Facebook and Spotify and everywhere else. And I'll see you all real soon. And always remember, keep on rocking.